Merritt, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
It was a big offseason, big change, obviously, for the club. Feels like a new era of sorts for the Portland Timbers. How do you characterize and sum up the offseason and your thoughts as we head into 2018?
A blur. I mean, it was crazy. It's amazing because I always feel this time of year, like I've at least had some R&R, and this time, it's been nuts. Starting with a coach change, which is no little thing in and of itself. Significant rule changes in MLS in terms of the infusion with the capital that we're allowing now on the roster, which has enabled us to add significant pieces. In addition to that, a trade of a pretty big player for us for the past couple of years, and all the while we're doing massive construction on the stadium, trying to get that in on time. We've renovated the practice facility, and oh, by the way, we've had this craziness of the soccer election and everything like that going on in the backdrop. So it's been nuts. It really has. But I feel like we're in a good spot, and I feel really positive about our staff and infrastructure and their ability to manage the phonetic activity.
You mentioned the new head coach, Giovanni Savarese. We've begun to see what he's about as a head coach. During Tucson in the preseason, he was mic'd up for a training session. Here's a sample.
We're going to play the game that we played the other day to put the balls inside the garbage can. Let's see if there's another team that wins, Ari.
Yeah, we won that day.
With feet, you can do left or right, okay? And then headers.
Merritt, we see from their charismatic, personable, and the way that he is the man manager of what we're seeing early on. Your impressions of the new head coach for the Timbers early on?
Well, that was an example of how he injects a little bit of fun into practice, which I think is extra important given the fact that the team is coming off of more practice in preseason than we've ever had. I mean, we had a schedule of 2-a-days, I think, that has been unprecedented and hopefully serves to put in a little bit more of a fitness base in for these guys, which will serve them well over the course of the season. But he has an infectious personality and a charisma, as you guys have seen, as everybody who's been around him has seen. He relates to players really well. He's particularly able to relate to some of the multinational guys and Hispanic guys. It's well documented. He speaks like a million languages. He's just he's got a very high level of EQ, emotional intelligence, and he's also, we're having to drag him out of the office. He's working around the clock, and so his work ethic is I've never seen anything like it, and that's coming from someone who oversees an organization where we've got a lot of people with pretty good work ethic, and he's unique. So it's tough to come out of the gate with 5 on the road, including some ridiculous road trips. We do LA, and then it's New York, and then it's Dallas, and then it's Orlando. I mean, that's a lot of miles and a lot of travel to kick off the year.
The frequent flyer accounts for all the new players are going to get filled up pretty quick. Obviously,
not easy.
Yeah, you mentioned the new guys that are coming in and the injection of TAM, and we see Andy Polo and Cascante and Armenteros and Paredes and more. What the team has done, what you guys have done on the field with the personnel in this offseason, what do you expect from some of the new faces?
Well, I think just more of a macro level, we'll see the biggest jump in quality, perhaps, that MLS has seen from one season to the next, and that's already coming off the basis of a pretty decent trajectory in terms of improvement year over year. I mean, what's happening league-wide with this injection of capital is really significant. Every team has made some big additions over the offseason, and it's never tough to acclimate to a new league, even for talented players. So not all of them are going to hit, but we've certainly gone pretty big there as well, and so far so good. These guys look like they're going to be all contributors, all big pieces to the club. I think Gavin, Gio, Ned, Grabavoy have done a really good job. So, you know, it's going to be fun to see. We've gotten younger, and we've added a lot of competition in our own roster for playing time. You know, there's very few positions on our team which aren't competitive now, and that's fairly unique to MLS, and it's something that the league hasn't had enough of.
Talk about these new players coming into the league outside the Timbers. Early predictions from you. What other clubs that you've been impressed with that could surprise a few fans, could surprise the league?
You know, it's hard to say. I think last season when we did this show, I predicted that Houston was going to take a step forward. Maybe that was too prophetic. If I knew they were going to knock us out of the playoffs, I should have bit my tongue. But you know, the obvious one is I'm not exactly going out on a limb when our opponent in week one, I think LA Galaxy, who had a pretty bad year last year, have done a lot, and they're going to be better. I was talking with some guys in an owner's deal a couple weeks ago, and it's like I think there's a couple teams in the West who I've got a pretty good sense aren't going to make the playoffs. Then you've got a whole handful of teams vying for spots 4 through 6 in the playoffs, and it's, you know, 6-1, half dozen the other in terms of, you know, who you pick. I mean, it's tough, and then maybe there's 3 or so that should be contending for the top spot, and hopefully we're in that mix when it's all said and done.
Still a few weeks away, but while we have you here, I want to ask you about the Portland Thorns trying to defend their NWSL title in 2018. What do you make of the offseason for the Thorns and the NWSL as a whole? Obviously, some major news with franchises in that league this offseason.
Well, I mean, just in terms of the Thorns specifically, as we found out in 2016, defending a title is not always, you know, the easiest thing. So the Thorns have a target on their back. The good news there is we pretty much have had a target on our back, you know, every game, you know, for the past 5 seasons anyway. I mean, everybody in that league is out to prove themselves against us, and it's a battle-hardened group, and having Tobin hopefully healthy is pretty much like adding a new world-class player. So really unfortunate with Caitlin Ford injury. She was a big addition, but, you know, we'll miss Amandine, we'll miss Nadia as well, but we've got some talent in there, and again, a lot of competition on that team. So I'm looking forward to continuing to surpass our already lofty goals and our lofty achievements.
Also, of course, we have to ask you, with U.S. Soccer, having a new president, Carlos Cadero has come in. Your thoughts of the new president and U.S. Soccer, the direction with this big decision of somebody new at the helm?
I feel like we're at a good place, and especially given the craziness that characterized the election. You know, just so many people ticked off about Trinidad and Tobago and not qualifying and kicking and screaming, and you know, let's forget about qualifications and experience, and, you know, let's just blow everything up. And I think that in Carlos, you've got a guy who's not a status quo guy. He's had experience, certainly at the Federation, but I think he's going to be making changes, and he already has. I mean, he's the fact that we're going to have a full-time GM making soccer decisions who's a qualified soccer person on both the men's and the women's side is a significant change. And I just saw their press conference the other day, and he'll be operating, it seems, more on a chairman-like role in working with FIFA and working on governance and transparency and those kinds of things. And I think we'll end up in a good place. But the backdrop was pretty crazy, and the whole promotion relegation thing. Look, if you think promotion and relegation is going to produce world-class American players, you're nuts. It's not. I mean, there's other reasons. It creates a level of excitement, you know, in leagues that are not parity leagues, you know, for you know, who could potentially come in and who can drop out. But moving to a FIFA calendar, even if it was possible, you know, with weather and conditions in this country, which is more like Russia than it is like England. You know, again, that's what we've got to do is build a better and better league, improve the quality of play. MLS has been one of the great things about soccer in this country. It's been an unequivocal success on and off the field, and we got to keep doing what we're doing. And as we get better, the Americans that are playing in our league are going to be benefited exponentially because of the higher caliber of play, and we're going to have more high-quality Americans that want to play in MLS.